So you're here watching this bike school channel because you want to get better at your bike. And that's a noble goal, okay? That's pretty much everyone's goal. And most people achieve this by riding their bike and by watching how-to videos. And these are very important things. There's absolutely nothing wrong with it. That's how I got better on my bike. But when my progression started to rapidly happen, it was because I started doing something else. And that thing that I started doing is what I'm going to share with you in this video, and then we're going to break it down and I'll give you kind of a step-by-step way to apply it to yourself and your riding so that you can become better quicker. Let's get right into the video. This tip already ties into what you're doing, watching how-to videos and riding bikes, but so it's going to be easy to apply and there's no reason that you shouldn't be doing it. And the tip is simple. The tip is goal setting. Okay? It's that simple, setting goals. Let me ask you a question. How many times have you shown up to the skate park and then just magically learned a new trick? I can tell you for me, that's never happened. I've never gone to the park and then magically left the park with a new trick. Usually there's a purpose behind it and you have something that you're working on and you're working towards, okay? And so that's why it pains me when I have friends and I see people just show up to the skate park just to ride without any intention. Now there's nothing wrong with just going out and riding. It's a good stress reliever and I do it from time to time. But when I feel like progressing, when I want to progress and when I want to get better, I've got to have some intention behind it. I'm not just going to the park to ride. I'm going to the park to learn opposite feeble 180s or opposite feeble whips. Like those are my current things right now that I'm working towards. And if I didn't have those in mind, I wouldn't be able to progress very fast. So recently you might have seen this Instagram clip. Daniel is trying a double flare 360. And while he didn't land it, do you think he just showed up to his backyard and then that trick happened? Absolutely not. He's thought about it. And I would argue that he's thought about trying this trick for a long time. Okay, maybe years. Maybe he thought about this trick years ago and now he's finally ready to do it. And there's a specific reason that he would just now be trying this trick. Goal setting is very interesting because you can break it down into micro goals. So if I have a goal to fly to the moon, there are a lot of little things that I need to do before I can do that. And if you look at just a big goal, like let's say Daniel Sandoval, 15-year-old Daniel Sandoval looking at a double flare 360, that's a huge goal. That's very scary, that's very daunting. But if you break it down into multiple micro goals, it's going to make the process a lot easier. In Daniel's example, the flare 360 and the double flare are two of those micro goals. And to break it down even farther, he's got to learn a single flare and he's got to learn a 360. And so those all break down into multiple different goals. And so he can have this overarching huge goal of a double flare 360, but he has to take multiple steps back and say, okay, what's really important here and what do I need to learn that leads into this? There are a lot of riders who do this in the wrong way. So that's great. Daniel Sandoval 360 double flare. How does that apply to you? Let me break it down and show you some steps of ways that you can implement this into your riding. Now, your goal doesn't have to be double flare. It can be very simple. It can just be basic bike control. But let's break it down, okay? First, you've got to set the goals. Pick a few tricks that you want to learn. For me, when I first started out riding, it was 360, bar spin, and tail whip. Those were the three tricks that I really wanted to learn. And for a brand new rider, that's a pretty noble goal. Chances are, it took me a couple years to learn how to tail whip. It took me about a year and a half to do a bar spin, okay? And so I had to break those down into further steps. And the problem was I didn't know how to do that. And so I was just constantly throwing the same trick over and over and over and not actually getting anywhere with it. Learning in that way of trying and trying and trying and trying is possible, but it takes a very long time. If you have intention behind it and you strategically think about it and break it down, it becomes a lot easier to go step by step when you're learning these tricks. And so that's the first thing, okay? Set these goals. The second thing is what I touched on, is break it down a little bit more. Understand what goes where and what you need to do to master into this trick. A lot of people, like I said earlier, do this the wrong way. So typically you're gonna see people learning pull-up bar spins and you're like, hey, why are you learning a pull-up bar spin? And they're like, well, because it's gonna help me learn hop bar spins. Wrong. That is so wrong. Like, they're two different tricks. Your foot placement's different, your weight position is different. They're not even the same, but people have a common misconception about that. And so this is where it's really imperative to hire a coach and have someone, or ask your local pro, like have someone who knows what they're doing, walk you through those steps and say, hey, you know, if you're learning tail whips, here are some things to work on. Here are some drills, here are some smaller tricks that you can learn that go hand in hand with learning that. For those of you guys who are bike school members who are watching this, if you guys have a goal that you want to work through, ask Nick and I in the Facebook group what micro goals you should be setting towards that, so we can give you a clear path for that progression. And then the third thing you're going to need to do is to keep those micro goals in the back of your head when you go out and ride. And obviously actually ride. You've got to do that. So when you show up to the park, now you've got it in the back of your head. You're like, all right, I want to learn bar spin. But before I do that, I'm going to take a step back. I'm going to work on X-ups. I'm going to work on making sure that my chest is over the bars, my knees are pinched, and my hips are back when I do that X-up. So that position is exactly like a bar spin. And then transitioning from there is going to be very similar to just letting go of the bars, okay? When you're standing at the park, now you're going to stand there and toss the bars to get used to the throwing and catching motion. There are a lot of little things that you need to add in to make doing the bar spin easier. And so when you break it down and when you have that in the back of your mind, your time at the skate park is going to be a lot more productive. For me, I block off certain times. So I have like a basic flow of when I go to the park. Like, I get there, I warm up, I just do some basic flowing stuff, some manuals, some airs, real basic stuff. After I'm warmed up, that's when I start to kind of work on tricks that I can already do and make sure that I'm fine-tuning them, trying to get them a little bit cleaner, a little bit smoother, a little bit more extended. And then there's a section in there where I'm trying tricks that I haven't landed yet. And that's kind of my progression session, or section, whatever. And that's when those things that are in the back of my mind are leading into that. It's like, I wanted to learn opposite feeble 360s for a long time, but I couldn't even opposite feeble. And so it's like, hey, I can keep trying this over and over and over, or I can take a step back, hit my micro goal of working on opposite feebles, which is really boring. And then it led into opposite feeble 360s for me. And there are a lot of things like 360 down whip. I tried 360 down whips for a long time, but I couldn't opposite 360. And so it wasn't until I spent a solid month working on straight opposite 360s, nothing else, just straight opposite 360s, and feeling confident doing it, that the 360 down whip worked. And so those are the 3 steps. It's that simple. Set the goals, break down the goals into micro goals, and then keep that in the back of your head and pick a time to apply that when you're riding. The time that you apply, it's going to be different for everyone. Like I said, I have a structure that I follow, but yours might be different. You might go with just that in mind. You don't do the warm up, you don't do any of that. You just go and execute. So just by setting these riding goals and working towards them, you're going to notice a huge difference in your riding. Your progression is going to happen a lot quicker. And look, I feel you. Stepping back and doing stuff that feels smaller is frustrating. It's like, I don't know, it's kind of monotonous. You're just like, God, this is so boring. But it's important. I promise you it's important. If you take that step back, analyze those goals and break those goals down, your progression is going to just be crazy, okay? Now, if you want help learning a specific trick, you want to join the other bike school members who have access to coaching from Nick and I, and who have access to our members only area. This is going to help you learn any trick. And like I said, I can guide you, I can break it down and make sure that you're on the right path. And it's a really cheap monthly price, okay? The link to do that is in the description or in the comments. Let me know what video, what are you guys stuck with? Let me know what you're stuck with so I can make a helpful video for you guys next week. And yeah, we'll see you in the next video. Oh, the video on the screen, YouTube thinks that you're really gonna like it, so check that out too.